What's up guys, Saf here on SuperSaf TV, and we've got a bit of a different camera comparison this time. We've got a collaboration with somebody who I'm sure you recognize, Marques Brownlee.
Should be fun, should be the ultimate test.
This is gonna be the ultimate. Should we put that in capitals in the title?
All caps ultimate test, yeah. So what do we have here?
So we've got lots of pictures from the Google Pixel 4 XL.
Yep.
And the iPhone 11 Pro Max.
Okay.
So this is the one everybody wants to see.
These are the two top dogs.
They are,
allegedly.
Indeed. And I went out in Brooklyn yesterday and took a bunch of shots, like loads. So I've got them all lined up for us to have a look at.
Sure.
We're gonna have a look at images first. We've got loads, we've got low light, we've got everything covered, dynamic range, and then we've also got a bit of video, which we're gonna have a look at.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of share our opinions. Some of these, I'm not gonna share the labels initially, so you guys can also see which one you prefer before we reveal which one that is. But I'm assuming there's gonna be a bit of a theme that we're gonna be able to tell which is which after a bit, right?
I hope so.
Yeah,
I'm
usually is the case, isn't it?
Usually we can tell.
Yeah, because whenever I post anything on Twitter, like Marques is straight away, I know which one that is. I'm like, shh,
I'm
Twitter
pretty
police.
pretty good at Twitter policing, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so we're starting off outdoors, and we have this from the primary camera of both devices. So first impressions.
Okay, so straight off the bat, they're both really sharp. They both have a good amount of some sky detail. They're about the same focal length. The one on the left is a little wider, but the main difference, honestly, between them is color temperature. And if I'm remembering correctly, Pixel 3 would always bias a little bit cooler. And from what I've tested so far, I mean, this is coming out later, but Pixel 4 also has a little bit of a cool hue, typically.
Yeah.
So if I'm guessing, I think left is Pixel 4, right is iPhone 11, and both are very good photos.
Pretty much a draw, you'd say,
Yeah.
yeah? Okay. Surprise.
Wow, interesting. So every once in a while it does flip-flop. So we have a warmer photo from the Pixel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, like for me, I think both are actually doing really good. I would call it a bit of a draw. So that was interesting.
I've already failed my first one. I don't feel very good about that.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there's lots more to go through.
Okay.
Right. Now here's something that we definitely need to talk about, because this is a perfect situation where, boom,
ultra wide.
Like, I mean, that just gives you the full bridge.
That shot is, I'm not gonna say impossible on the Pixel, because technically you can do a panorama and like stitch it together, and it's gonna take you a minute.
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing you only really get from just snapping that ultra wide.
Exactly. That's something, unfortunately, that the Pixel doesn't have. So, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So now again, wide shot thoughts.
So I'm looking at if I'm not pixel peeping and zooming in, a little bit of a brighter exposure, a little more HDR happening on the right, where you see the rocks are a little bit brighter. But yeah, very similar. I almost would say on the right, I'm gonna say pixels on the right again, because it's more contrasty again in that fence area, and with the buildings in the back, it's got a little bit of a sharper contrast.
Okay.
So that's my first instinct.
Okay, and any preference, just overall? Again,
yeah, they're
happy
about the
with
same.
either of them, right?
These two are similar. Yeah.
Right.
There
You
we
got
go.
it. You get it. Yeah, I think both are doing a really good job. You really can't go wrong. Right, telephoto now. So we have optical zoom on both of these. So, you know, I thought it'd be a good way to try this out. So this is using 2x optical zoom.
It's weird that the iPhone went cool again. I'm so used to the iPhone being warm all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Okay.
I mean, they do flip from one to another in terms of the zoom on both of these so far. This is 2x.
2x, yeah. They both seem to have a pretty good amount of detail. You see the windows and the buildings and everything on both. No problems here.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things Google have been talking about is the digital zoom, hybrid zoom, shall we say.
Beyond 2x.
Yeah, beyond 2x.
Right.
So the maximum you can go is around 8x. So that's what I did on both of these. And I thought, let's have a look at something like this.
Okay, so you're looking at super res zoom on Pixel, getting to 8x with the 2x telephoto, versus this is just going to be straight digital zoom from the 2x on the iPhone. In theory, we should see a sharpness difference. But for me, that's really all in theory. I don't necessarily think one of them's drastically sharper than the other. The Pixel is just brighter at this point.
I'm noticing a little bit more noise in the iPhone image.
True.
especially towards like the trees and the buildings.
Okay, that's a good observation. Yeah.
So I think I would say a little bit better on the Pixel here.
Yeah.
So that zoom does seem to be going to it, but you know, if I was to pick, I'd always pick an ultra wide over hybrid zoom. You know what I mean?
How many pictures do you take this zoomed in? Like
Exactly.
my typical photo is not going to be 8x zoom almost ever. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. All right. So just another outdoor image.
This is a colorful one. I like this one. Yeah. Wow. These are super similar.
Yeah.
It looks like the right is a little bit cooler. So you see the color temperature in the clouds if you just look at the color white up in the top.
Yeah.
The left is a little warmer, the right is a little bit more blue. Honestly, sometimes I personally in my own videos will tend to bring highlights a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
But when I'm just looking for a straight photo
Yeah.
that I want to be accurate, I think I'd pick the left as the slightly warmer, more accurate photo.
And do you know? Would you say which one's which?
No, I'm pixel peeping.
Yeah.
Because it's really that similar.
Yeah.
I was so thrown off by the pixel being warmer
Yeah.
that I don't know anymore. So I'm gonna say left is pixel and right is iPhone. Okay. What is that? 4 for 5 or something?
That's not
3
bad.
for 4.
That's not bad.
I'm doing pretty well since the beginning.
And I think this is another thing I wanted to show the ultra wide.
Oh wow, yeah.
Boom. Like, you know, you just get so much more of that foreground. It just gives you so much more context. And that's something that I use a lot on ultra wide now. I'm so used to it. Right. Dynamic range here. Got David standing right in front of the window. Got light coming in from the background. It's quite a dark room.
Just both of these shots right now from a smartphone are incredible versus like 5 years ago. And you don't realize that, but if you try to shoot this with a normal camera or something that doesn't have this sort of smart HDR, you're either going to lose the window or you're going to lose David. But you got both. When I'm looking at the side-by-side, I think I would look more into the noise levels that you get in the shadows. Looks like the left one's a bit noisier, the right one a little bit cleaner. A little magenta from the left, not a huge deal, but I think I'd guess pixel on the right and iPhone on the left. But now I want to switch that. Yeah, you know what I'm switching? As soon as I left my mouth,
I pressed it too quick.
The left is also contrastier than the right. So if you look at the red and black here on the left
you do
versus
notice
on the
that,
right,
definitely.
this little slight faded look that you get a lot from the iPhone because it's less contrasty. I should have also pointed that out, but yeah. They're both really good for
very good. I mean, so when I was actually looking at these, I had to double check just to make sure I didn't mix them up, and I definitely didn't. But I did notice the noise on the Pixel one.
Pixel shot, yeah.
Whereas it looks like the iPhone's done a really good job. But I think what iPhone, especially from the XS, when it comes to dynamic range, since we had smart HDR, they've really done well when it comes to dynamic range.
Right.
So I've been very impressed with the iPhone, and you know, here I do prefer it because of that noise that we've got here on the Pixel.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Low light now. This is interesting. So
you're gonna try to, I don't know if are these night mode or
so all of these night shots have been taken using the night mode, so you know, multiple exposures.
So what I've noticed from night mode from these two cameras is again Pixel night sight more dramatic and more contrasty, where iPhone at night, especially with subjects, tends to keep it looking more accurate to the scene, like at night. But some people might like it either way. It's more, you know, dramatic with the Pixel here. So looking at the difference between these two, I'm seeing a lot more noise up in the sky here on the right shot. And on the left-hand side is the smooth blue gradient. I don't actually know at night which one would do more of that, but I'm gonna guess left is Pixel and right with this less contrasty look is iPhone.
Okay, this is interesting.
Huh.
Surprising, isn't it?
More contrasty from the iPhone this time.
Yeah, and I also like the noise level. I was surprised about the amount of noise that you get using night sight compared to the iPhone.
That may be a symptom of it trying to bring the sky up so much so that it's trying to bring it. It can get way more than this, but like it'll almost look like a daytime photo at night, and you will see noise in it. But when you zoom all the way out, it's like this dramatic photo. Pixel will do that sometimes, but wow, that's a lot of contrast from the.
So I mean, here I actually prefer the iPhone because just I wasn't a fan of the noise levels. I just thought that was more of a pleasing shot.
Yeah.
With a person, so again,
Subjects,
David. So this was interesting. I thought low light. Let's get a person.
Fascinating lighting situation.
Yeah, because it was like all this blue sort of light coming around, but it was
Yeah.
still it was tricky at the same time.
Okay, so this one's easy for me to pick. Right side's pixel.
Yep.
And the reason I know that, there's a bunch. The contrast again, so whenever the iPhone sees a face, is very consistent. They always trend to like lighten up the face a little bit and make sure it's a little brighter. If you have any weird dynamic range, at least you see the face. That's a little bit of what's happening here, a little more shadows on his face.
Yep.
But again, you get more contrast in this yellow and more saturation and a little more dramatic shot.
Yep.
So I'd be shocked if the right wasn't the pixel. All right,
You're correct.
it's the pixel.
You're correct.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you here. I do prefer the pixel shot here. I can also see a lot more sort of noise in the foreground compared to the pixel. Although that's, it has really tried to boost up those shadows, I think. But here I do prefer the pixel. This is an interesting one.
I've taken a lot of photos like this. I went to school in Hoboken, took a lot of skyline photos of New York City. Like every phone I tested, I took a photo like this. And they've gotten a lot better since now they all have night mode. Here, let's see, we have some noise in the sky on the left and a very smooth sky on the right. And maybe a little bit cooler on the left, but that's really the main difference.
Which do you prefer and which do you think is which?
Okay, I prefer the right, and I think the right is the iPhone.
You are correct, and I'd agree with you there.
Yeah.
All right, so another one.
Oh, this is a tough one. Wow. That spire, that blue spire, is really
It's
glowing pretty hard on each of these.
Yeah.
Your dynamic range is also similar, but again, I'm seeing a lot more dramatic brightening on the right side photo, and that comes with some noise in the sky.
Yeah.
Right side is pixel again, left side is iPhone.
Which do you prefer?
I think I weirdly prefer the brighter pixel photo this time.
Okay, interesting.
Just because sometimes this has more of like a wallpaper look. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I could clean up that noise and it would be pretty cool. But
Okay.
yeah.
I would go with the iPhone on this one.
On this one,
Yeah, I just like, and also with the lights, I think they've just like gone a little bit too far.
I think you could drag
Yeah.
each of these photos in Lightroom to look
Yeah.
like the other one.
Potentially, yeah. I think you could. Yeah, I think with a lot of these, but the way I find it is like a lot of people. I think we kind of maybe edit the images to that level, but a lot of people just slap a filter on and then post them, right?
Yeah.
Right. Portrait.
Portrait mode time. I feel like I should get all of these right. This
You
is the one
should.
I'm usually guessing on your Twitter. Like which one has
this
the best
one's
portrait.
this one's
Okay.
an easy one.
Yeah.
So.
So this one left is pixel.
Yep.
And I'm knowing that because it's interestingly a little bit wider. But again, it's more contrasty.
Yep.
And it's doing a very sharp, very deliberate cutout any way that it can. It makes the misses a little more dramatic and easy to point out, but the iPhone will sort of smooth over. Once it finds the face, it sort of smooths over the rest and doesn't do as sharp of a cutout. And it's typically a little bit warmer on the iPhone too. So this is, everything about this is textbook, like what you would expect from portrait mode.
Which would you pick? Like, which do
So-
you prefer from these two?
In this case, because Pixel nailed it, I would pick the Pixel.
Yep.
And I think often when the Pixel gets it right, I would prefer the Pixel photo. But in the cases where Pixel messes it up, and I'm sure it will a couple times, I think that's when I'll start to lean away from it because it's still missing. And this is stuff that software will get better at, but Pixel for this one.
Yeah, I prefer the Pixel for this one as well. What's quite interesting is that we've noticed that the Pixel, when you're shooting portraits, is a little bit wider. It looks like it's going around 1.8x rather than 2x. So you're getting a slightly wider angle of view, even though you're using a telephoto. However, the iPhone lets you shoot portraits from the
1x.
primary. So like this is standing from the same place, and you've got all of me in, whereas you only had that before. So you do have that option.
Yeah, and
Which you like.
I'm assuming you also prefer at least the choice of being able to do 1x.
I definitely prefer the choice. When it comes to portraits, I do prefer a telephoto portrait.
Okay.
Because that's more around the 50mm mark. So
It's
whenever
more accurate.
Yeah, it's more accurate. So
Yeah.
I do prefer that, but then again, I like having the option because I like using portrait mode not only for people, and I think using the primary camera is really good to use it for, giving you that flexibility, which the Pixel now no longer has.
I prefer the wide portraits for two reasons. One is the wide angle, shallow depth of field look tends to feel a little more nice. I think that's purely subjective. I just like the look. But also, the main sensor is just a better camera than the telephoto.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So anytime I have the ability to use the main camera and it get less noise and better quality, I'll pick that almost every time. So that's it would have been nice for Pixel to let us do that.
Yeah, maybe they can do a software update. Hey Google, without actually activating
triggering
anything.
all our phones, yeah.
But yeah, just sort it out. Now this was actually in a little bit of tricky lighting, so it wasn't the best lit.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Chop your ear off. Pixel chopped your ear off.
Yep.
So when you start to get the very sharp, confident cutouts, you'll notice the mistakes more.
Yes.
And so in a photo like this, I think I'd prefer the iPhone. Colors a little more accurate, a little less dramatic. But yeah, that miss on the side of the sunglasses and the ear is what stands out.
I think it's a really good point. Like the iPhone will probably just like soften things around a little bit more, but then it's a little bit more forgiving. If it does miss something a little bit, you can't notice it right away. But when you're going for that sharp mass cutout, like
it looks cool when it works.
Yeah.
And it usually works, but when it doesn't, then you start to see that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now this is the one that we took just a couple of hours ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another place where it's very obvious what Apple's doing to your face here.
Yeah.
So I've taken a lot of photos. I know my skin tone on camera very well, and you can see Apple identifies my face and gets it a little bit brighter. And you see on my face here, I don't know if it did it to yours. Maybe the sunglasses sort of tricked it a little bit. But you see my face, you just have this like dark shadow area because that's what it really looked like.
Yeah.
Color temperatures are pretty similar, but I don't think that's anything too drastic. It's just the contrast there.
Yeah. And Brandon moved a little bit back to kind of match the angle a little bit more here as well.
Right.
Preference?
Preference, I'm going to say Pixel.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer the punchy look when it gets it right. It doesn't look like it screwed up the edges too bad.
They look pretty good.
Yeah, it gets the hair right.
So it looks like the Pixel does do good from what I can see when it comes to people.
Yeah.
Not so much when it comes to
pets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have in my video, we might go live at around the same time, but
Yeah.
I think I had some problems with the pets that I didn't expect because you have two cameras now. You'd think depth
so you think it'd be a little bit better.
would do better, and it didn't do as well as the single camera Pixel 3. So I'll talk about that in my video, but I found that fascinating.
That video will be linked below, so definitely go ahead and check it out. Okay, now selfies.
Selfies.
You're not much of a selfie guy.
I don't take a lot of selfies. I should do it more just to mess with the cameras and see what it looks like. I find myself taking pictures of environments and objects more often. Selfie cameras, I loved the Pixel 3 selfie cameras. The plural, 2 selfie cameras. You could go ultra wide if you wanted to. iPhone went wider. Pixel has a single camera now, it's wider. So you can see the focal length now is about as close as they've ever been. But instantly, you can tell which one's the Pixel on the left, and that's because it's punchier again, it's crisper, it's a little more saturated. I instantly give this one to the Pixel. Yeah.
So I, of course, just take selfies just purely for testing purposes.
Yeah.
But like, it's interesting because I actually like that sharper look of the Pixel. Some people don't want to, kind of amplify their
want to soften the
imperfection.
features
They kind of want to
bit.
like, which I think like obviously the Huawei's and the Oppos kind of go a bit overboard on that.
Yeah.
The Samsung still does that. But I actually don't mind the iPhone because I don't think it softens things too much where it looks fake. It's still, just kind of like enough to be still a pleasing shot.
Yeah, I think when you put them next to each other, it becomes much more obvious. But if you just gave me the iPhone photo, it's obviously not a bad looking photo at all. It still has a lot of, the beard test, the beard detail. Shout out to Lou, you get a lot of that. You get the hair still. There's nothing like the dynamic range is still excellent. You have cloud detail. So neither of these is, drastically better than the other. I just, when you put them next to each other, you can see the difference so clearly.
I mean, I definitely prefer the Pixel here. It just has that more dramatic look, which I do like. But that's not to say that the iPhone's doing a bad job. It's actually doing a really good job. And I like that we've got a wider angle of view now.
Yeah.
Right. So now one thing you'll notice with the iPhone, however, is when you switch to portrait mode, then it no longer uses the wider angle. It uses the more punched in. Although both of them do punch in, the iPhone punches in a little bit more.
Okay.
All right. So thoughts on here?
Yeah. So, you see the difference in the way Apple does it versus the way Google does it. Google, again, trying to just do a depth cut out of everything, which is like it's including your jacket, but it's missing a little bit of the corner.
Yep.
Where Apple sees your face, makes sure it gets the face, and then softens things around it. So it's not really focusing on keeping that collar too much.
Yeah.
Or the side of the jacket here, it's a little blurred, where Google tries to keep it.
But then you see that sort of defect around
Then
here.
some of it starts to mess up. So when you have a complicated edge like that, which most people will have, they'll have hair, or they'll have glasses, or a jacket, or something.
Yeah.
And all of that detail is difficult to get it right. So I think a lot of people will like the way the iPhone does it, so there's no glaring problems.
Yeah.
But just zoomed way out for me, I still prefer the punchier, detailed photo of the Pixel. I almost want like a hybrid between the two in this case.
Yeah, I agree.
Both have their strengths here.
Yeah, I totally agree there. You know, at first glance I do prefer the Pixel, but I prefer the edges of the iPhone. I think it's done a better job. Just around like it looks, it's a lot more natural rather than, you know, with that sort of defect, which really stands out. Now this one's really tricky. You'll know which one is which, but this is a good example because we've got a lot going on in the background here. And now if you look towards this sort of area here, the Pixel compared to the iPhone.
It lost your hair in the background.
Yes.
And it drew an outline around your like the forehead, basically. Yeah, these are the tougher situations. So Apple, what did they do? They basically got your face, your hair, and just slowly applied the blur to the jacket again. Makes sense. I think that's where you'd probably take if you were trying to pixel peep the iPhone photo. Yeah.
But it is interesting because both of them take very different approaches when it comes to portraits, and you may prefer one or the other. I think a lot of the times the Pixel kind of looks more pleasing at first glance, but then, you know, when you start looking at the edges, it can either do amazing, or if it doesn't work, then, you know, you're going to see those defects.
Do you find that some mess up the glasses more often than others? Because obviously they're like not a normal face dimension. So
well, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. I think the iPhone actually does really well.
It'll probably do the best.
Yeah, it does the best generally from what I've seen. Right. This was dynamic range. So this was really interesting because I was like, I'm gonna stand in front of this window. It's a dark room, and
so it turns out Pixel's got a little bit more highlight range. I'm assuming you just went for the face as the exposure. That's a tough photo again for any camera. And I don't know exactly what that room looked like, but iPhone really cast green here for some reason. A little magenta happening with the Pixel.
I think it did struggle a little bit with just how tricky this lighting situation was. Completely backlit. And I think this is where, you know, Pixel's new HDR Plus really is kind of helping here.
It's more accurate.
Yeah. Okay, this is low light selfies, right?
Okay.
So this was quite interesting. People always ask about low light selfies. I generally don't take low light selfies.
Not a ton, yeah.
Is
the phone lighting up with the flash?
That's what we're going to look at next.
Okay.
This is the first one without anything, just to kind of see how they handle that low light.
Yeah. So interestingly, iPhone's a little cropped. I guess you didn't zoom out for it. But
maybe I forgot to do that. Actually, that's a good point.
Yeah. But generally, color is pretty close. They're both going to have a bunch of noise. You have a little more softness, I guess, with the hat. I'm looking at the text on your hat on the iPhone, but yeah, that's actually a tough photo.
Yeah, but I do notice a lot more noise on the iPhone compared to the Pixel.
Yeah. Up in the sky too.
Now this is using the front-facing flash, and
Wow. Yeah. No, that gives you a lot more like room to mess with, like getting actual contrast on the face. Yeah. It looks like you have a flash on the Pixel, but the iPhone looks sort of like there's something bright in the distance, and it's sort of glowing on you.
Yeah. Which do you prefer?
I prefer the Pixel.
Yeah.
And it's also still it's a little more confident about that contrast and color, so you're bumping up the yellow and the saturation and everything again. And it worked this time. I feel like there might be times where it gets confident and then it just looks crazy. But this one, I think Pixel won this one.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. One thing that's interesting is that the Pixel's actually got night sight from the front-facing camera as well. Something that you don't have on the iPhone, and you don't also have on the ultra-wide camera.
Right.
I'm not going to do a comparison of that because the
Can't
the
do
Pixel still doesn't have one, so it's better to have one that doesn't have night sight than
But
not
look how
have one at all.
dramatic that night to day look is.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're almost in like a daytime environment with a dark sky.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
It's
But yeah, there you go. Now there's no noise. Now there's brighter colors, better white balance, all that.
okay. So that was a bunch of images. Now I've got a few little video clips that we're gonna have a look at.
Sure.
And we'll see. Okay, so this is the initial selfie camera. Let me know in between. So when you're watching it, just let me know which one you think is which.
Okay.
Starting off with the front-facing camera tests, we do have 4K on the iPhone. Unfortunately, we only have up to 1080p on the Pixel. Now, just testing out the stabilization on both. So starting off with the walk. Now let's go ahead.
Because you're wider on the left, which I guess is the iPhone, you're getting more stabilization room to play with, and it worked better. Yeah, that looked better on the left.
Yeah.
So iPhone takes 4K up to 60, while the front-facing camera on the Pixel is still 1080.
1080. I also noticed like I prefer the dynamic range here as well because like the cloud detail, it's just got a bit more.
Yeah.
The fact that it's 4K but it's still wider from the front-facing camera.
Yeah.
Like you'd think that if it's 1080, then it doesn't need to but I mean, it's just night and day here for me.
Yeah, I think I would prefer the iPhone of those two videos.
Okay, cool. Now we're just going to move on to the rear-facing cameras.
Okay.
Switching on to the rear-facing cameras, we're at 4K 30 frames a second on both. Just taking a look around. Just a random dude there. Anyway, now let's test out the stabilization. So, got a straight path. Just walking. Now let's go ahead and run.
Oh, there's the difference. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pixel, they brag a lot about their EIS, and that's a perfect use of, you either love it or hate it. It looks like you're like running with a stabilizer, basically. Okay. The left one, it was significantly smoother. You almost couldn't tell you were running. Okay. So I would guess that that's EIS. Okay. Whichever one has EIS, I think that's Pixel.
That is the iPhone.
That's the iPhone looking super smooth like that? The
iPhone stabilization is very good. To me, when you see the stabilization, there's a lot of jitter, like especially if you look here. Can you notice that? Right?
Oh, on the bridge, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the iPhone here. Right, now let's test out the zoom while we're recording video. So that's 2 times on the iPhone, and also 2 times on the Pixel. Now we can go further digitally, so let's try that. And the maximum we can do on the iPhone is 6 times when we were in video, and also 6 times on the Pixel.
Yeah, when you paused on the tower, like that's when you saw it look like you're on a tripod basically on the Pixel. Like it just froze it and it was like, I know what you're trying to take a video of. Let's just track to this, and if you move around, we'll just keep it there.
Yeah.
Which is nice sometimes. I remember actually specifically a while ago being on vacation, but like taking a photo where I'm just like standing pointing at a door, and I was handheld, but it looked like I was on a tripod. Like it did not move at all.
Yeah.
Some people are gonna like that.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're trying to shoot.
As soon as this is the thing though, what I find is as soon as you move, then you kind of see how much things just go, because it tries to lock onto something, and when it can't, the iPhone's a lot more natural, whereas the Pixel kind of like goes blurry and then sharpens up and then blurs again as soon as you're moving. And I deliberately kind of moved around a little bit more just to kind of test that out. Yeah. So yeah. Huh. Okay. And the final thing that I just had a look at was because you can get the ultra wide
video.
And again, like look how much of a dramatic difference that makes.
I had an instance recently where it was pretty painful because I walked in and I had a Pixel and I was trying to take a video of a room, and I couldn't like get the whole room in the shot, and I was like, if I had my iPhone with me, I would just do ultra wide video right now, and I didn't, and I missed it. So
there you go. So that's all the tests that we've got. There's a lot to go through there, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of opinions, so let's start off with regular shots in good light.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think it's actually easier to separate them out because in regular light, I often preferred the Pixel. And I think that's because it's confidently just punching up contrast, giving you a confident, you know, saturated a little more, but usually pretty accurate photo. So in daylight, I think I still prefer to take pictures with the Pixel as better than the iPhone. But then you switch to low light.
Yeah.
And it starts to sort of switch up a little bit. So that is like a night sight versus like night mode, deep fusion type of thing, where often the iPhone would start winning in night mode, which is impressive because we all looked at night sight as like a benchmark.
Yeah.
And you got a lot more impressive photos from the iPhone in dark situations.
Yeah.
So
good mix. So I think for daylight pictures, I think both are really good. The Pixel gets a little bit of edge because of the zoom, the super zoom. Yeah. So that is, it does get a little bit of edge, but I don't think the iPhone did bad. But for me, the ultra wide kind of changes that whole thing,
right?
Because then now the iPhone gets a whole
new vantage point.
Yeah, and it just gives it so many more points in my book because now I've got a whole different perspective, right? Which the Pixel just can't do.
Can't do it.
So then that's on that side of things. The low light, I'd say overall, there was certain situations where I preferred the Pixel, but I think overall, I didn't think I would be saying this, but I preferred the iPhone.
In low light.
Yeah, in low light.
Yeah.
Portraits,
from what we're looking at, which is portraits of people.
Yeah.
It seems like, I mean, the difference is the same as last year, where you get a very aggressive cutout with the Pixel, and it's more dramatic. And when you're zoomed out, I think that looks better.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you zoom in Pixel Peep, it is easier on the Pixel to find instances of like it missing a cutout or doing it wrong. So I'll probably, if I want a good, clean, no mistakes photo, I'll pick the iPhone. Yeah. But if I want a more dramatic, more impressive photo, I think I would pick the Pixel.
What about the fact that the iPhone also lets you shoot from the primary camera?
Major difference. Yeah, I like shooting wide-angle portrait mode photos. And the Pixel 3 was one of the best wide-angle portrait mode photos. They know they can do it with one lens, which is like shocking to me that they wouldn't let us do that still on the Pixel 4. But I wish I could do wide-angle.
Selfies?
Selfies, I'm again going to give that to Pixel. You can do night sight selfies. They both have about the same field of view, but you're getting a little more contrast, a little more sharpness.
Yeah, so I think for portraits, I do like the Pixel one straight at a first glance, but I do like that we've got the option of having two different options on the iPhone. So this is normal portraits. Selfies, overall, I think I'd lean towards the Pixel as well. I think the Pixel does selfies really well, and although they can be a little bit too sharp, maybe a little too contrasty, I kind of like that look. I think it might come down to your personal preference.
Yeah, but I think you could probably edit a lot of the iPhone photos to look more like the Pixel instead of vice versa. Yeah. It's hard to take out the contrast that's already baked in.
It is difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Video. Thoughts?
Video, I think, is an easy iPhone win. You can do 4K 60, which you can't do on the Pixel.
From all cameras.
You get ultra wide video.
Yeah.
You get front-facing 4K video.
Yeah.
You get I think better microphone, which matters a lot for video.
Yep.
So a lot of these things are just going to tilt it way in the favor of the iPhone, which seems to me like still the best video camera on a smartphone.
So I think we both mutually agree that right now the best video on any smartphone is the iPhone 11. iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max.
Yeah.
So like just all around there when it comes to video. Very interesting results here. I think both of them shoot really good pictures. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
You're going away for the weekend. You're going to be taking lots of pictures. You can only pick one phone. What is it going to be? Is it going to be the Pixel or is it going to be the iPhone?
I think if I'm being, hardlined one or the other, I think the iPhone is a better all-around bet for photos right now.
All right. No, that's interesting. Because I mean, I generally have two phones. I think we have the luxury of having two phones with us at all times, which nobody else really has. We have one Android, one iPhone. Yeah. And that's something everyone asks me, and I'm like, I always have two, right? But not everybody has that luxury right now. So if I was asked that question, I really like the Pixel's cameras, and I think they do great photos. But this year, not having an ultra wide, in my opinion, is no excuse.
So has the crown been transferred in best camera?
Pixel? The thing for me is whenever I've always talked about cameras, I kind of look at an overall package, right? Because I don't necessarily want to have two phones with me, although I have the luxury to have that. But if I'm looking at ultra wide video, I want everything in one package, I would pick the iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm still a person that likes the look of a Pixel photo more often than the look of an iPhone photo.
Yeah.
But as far as general overall package, you can only pick one, then yeah, iPhone.
So that's interesting. What do you guys prefer? Definitely drop us a comment below and let us know which one you preferred overall. And this has been fun. This has been fun. We should definitely do it again sometime. Let me know what you guys thought of this collaboration camera comparison, which was a little bit different to what we traditionally have on the channel. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything. And if you're not already subscribed to Marques, which I'm sure a lot of you already are, I actually looked at this on Instagram. You can see the people who have the most common followers with you.
Oh, really?
You're number one. 64% of my followers also follow you on Instagram.
Hello.
So
That's awesome.
So I don't know what the other 36% are doing, but you definitely want to check out Marques' content. Yeah, really awesome content. And there's also going to be a Pixel review that's going to be live right now at this moment, which is going to be linked in the description. I'll link in the cards as well. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe to Marques if you haven't already. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking part in this. And I'm sorry for putting you in the spot so much.
You know what? I got enough of them right that I'm not mad. Yeah. It's all good.
It was good. It was fun. It was fun. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Peace.
Dude, that was awesome. That was fun.
Yeah.
You got a few of them wrong.
Bang. I did.